four of us. So he found out a job in the glass factory, and I went to school, going to St. James School.
Oh, St. James, there in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
We have a St. James here, of
I
course.
know, and when I lived in Vancouver, Washington later on, there was a St. James over there too, so I'm kind of stuck with St. James. Every place I go, yeah.
Well, now, when you came to the Northwest, then did you you first came to the state of Washington?
Yes, Vancouver, Washington. I had two aunts who lived there by then. One of them was married to an American soldier during World War II, and she's the one that brought my other aunt, and then she brought us over there. So we kind of had a Lopuszynski settlement over there, and it was quite a new idea for me. For example, this is the first time I ever saw a television, the first time I used a telephone. First time I rode in the passenger car. Always before that was trains or trucks or cars or whatever. So
that's one of the reasons I love your new book. Here, I just think this book, "A Nation Destroyed, a Family Survives." Well, now this just came out.
It did. It just came out on the market late January. It's published by Publish America.
Yes.
It's available on eBay. And of course, I have 100 of those available at home. And anybody that would like to have inscribed a book, I'd be happy to do that for them. And
well, I was so pleased when last week you made the presentation at the Morning Kiwanis last Friday, and my wife, of course, who was Woman of the Year.
I saw that.
And she's the president of the Morning Kiwanis. And that's what I was so pleased that you were the program for the Morning Kiwanis, and I was able to purchase your book. I just think we in America are a land of immigrants. My father came over from Sweden, and he first came from Sweden and worked for some Swedish Scandinavian farmers in the state of Illinois before he finally made it to Grand Rapids, Michigan. I mean, we are a land of many peoples, and that's a very exciting thing about the U.S. of A.
Yeah, and the book, incidentally, is written as a historical novel, but really it's a biography of my life. There are very few names changed, and all the facts are the same. My sister-in-law helped me write it. I initially wrote it longhand, yes, and in first person. She typed it, then she changed it to third person, thinking she can make it more readable. And that's the form that we finally sold it as. But it is personal experiences all the way to the time when I graduated from college and I'm ready to join the Marines.
Well, that's the thing. And when I saw this map in your book about the travels of you and your family, all the travels you took before you ever made it to the U.S. of A. That's a fascinating journey.
It is, and I've never calculated in miles, how far that is, and then to the United States. It has to be perhaps 10,000 miles or more.
Yes.
And as I say, some was walking, some in the cars, some on trains, sometimes on the boats. We actually spent part of the winter in an old abandoned tea house. I think it was in Uzbekistan. That's we got winter then, snow then, and so tea house sounds pretty good, but it was nothing but an old wreck.
I see. Okay, now then, when after you got to the U.S. of A. and you were there in Pennsylvania, when did you go into the Marines?
Well, my aunt talked us into coming from Pennsylvania to Vancouver.
Well, Vancouver, Washington.
Yeah. I went to schools over there. And it was interesting because even when you think you know the language, like English language, you still don't when you come from across, because there's so many idioms and sayings that mean completely different thing. For example, when I was a sophomore, I turned out for football.
Oh,
and one time, I was kind of goofing off, so the coach told me to take a lap. And I says, I know what a lap is when you're sitting down. But what else is it?
Yeah.
And I saw
Didn't know that it meant a lap around the track.
I saw a couple of hurdles. I says, well, maybe it's from the hurdle to the other one. And there were quite a few other expressions that we all take for granted, and we understand what that means. But the foreigners who come over here and learn the language are lost.
Yes, yes. Now, when you were at it was Eastern Washington University,
Washington State
University.
Yeah.
Yes. Now,
a great institution.
And what was your major?
I majored in political science.
Political science.
Yeah, it's. I started in engineering, but I decided my heart was in politics, and because I joined the Young Democrats from the very first day I was on campus, and we struggled for 3 years with 10, 12 members, and then in the end of my junior year, I was elected as a president of the Young Democrats for the next year, 1960.
1960?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was all excited, but during that summer, I decided I really need to concentrate on my studies, and so I decided to give up all the social activities, including the Young Democrats, but it was my duty to call the organizational meeting. 120 people turned out.
120?
My heart broke because my first order of business was for me to resign. I almost didn't do it. I said, no, I have to get my education. That comes first. But we've been building for the previous 3 years, and of course the presidential year with President Kennedy coming on was really exciting, and
that was exciting in the same way, or a related way, a comparative way, with the recent election that we had of Obama.
Exactly. Very, a lot of comparisons.
First election of a Roman Catholic president. Yeah. Yes.
First president to be born in the 20th century, and so on and so on. He was the first president I got to vote for.
Yes.
Then I met him very, very briefly and very distantly a year and a half later, well, the next year, when he was elected. I was a Marine lieutenant. We went to the military ball for inauguration, and the president was walking right past us, and he saw 4 Marines, so he kind of saluted us smokingly, but he didn't speak to us. There were too many generals and admirals around him, but he recognized the 4 of us and gave us a nice salute. So you could say that I met President Kennedy in person.
Well, that's a marvelous story, marvelous. Now, how long were you in the Marines?
A little bit over 10 years, about 10 and a half, and those were some of the happiest years. Kathy and I, of course, were married shortly after I became a Marine, and suddenly we met on Valentine's Day in 61, no, in 62, and we married that July.
You met on Valentine's Day?
Yes.
You and your wife met on Valentine's Day?
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
That's a nice little ceremony that we have. And then I served, as I say, for about 10 and a half years. I was proud to command 6 company-sized units where I was there. Plus, I was also balanced with staff work. I was on the regimental and the division and the battalion staff. So I was well-rounded as a Marine.
Well, now, you were in the Marines then at the time of the Vietnam War.
Yes, I was. I spent a tour of duty in Vietnam, late 66 through 67. And, I was an artillery, so we didn't see as much combat as the infantrymen do, because we got to sit back and we fought long distance. It's much more fun to fight long distance than person to person.
Well, last year, my wife Barbara and I did this trip to Southeast Asia, and that was our first trip to Vietnam, and that was a marvelous experience. And one of the great things that we experienced on that, we went to 5 different countries in Southeast Asia, but I must say it was in Vietnam that we found the people the friendliest toward us. And we visited the museums, we visited where their president had lived in a very simple house that he had built, rather than living in a palace, that the French had there. But it was very basic to our understanding of these people, and no wonder they wanted to be free to govern themselves.
And it didn't develop that way, but